Hey guys, I'm here with Kurt Johnston from Saddleback. He is the student minister there. And Kurt, I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time, man. Love your work, love what you do, and love what you represent, man, as well. So thank you for your time this afternoon, man.
Well, thank you. Can you share all those nice thoughts with my wife and my two teenage children?
You know, I can't because I only got paid enough to do that. So it's kind of, but I will at least share it with your intern, though. I got paid that amount to actually do that, though. Thanks for the check, by the way. Hey, Kurt, man, tell us a little bit about yourself, dude, and how long have you been at Saddleback, man?
Yeah, well, I have been in youth ministry since 1988.
Wow.
I started out at a church in Whittier, California, and that's the church I met my wife at. My wife and we celebrate our 24th wedding anniversary in just about
Congratulations.
now. And from Whittier, my first church is where I met my wife, and we got married, went down to San Diego, worked with John Maxwell at his church for a few years, and then I've been at Saddleback for just over 18 years, since 9. I've been at Saddleback, and the majority of that time, up until recently, all I've ever done is junior high ministry. It's kind of where I felt called and the niche that I really enjoy. But at Saddleback, my roles kind of emerged, and over the past 7 years, I've taken on kind of overseeing junior high, high school, college on all of our different campuses. We've got 8 local campuses and 4 international campuses.
Wow. A couple questions to follow up on that, man. First of all, why have you been there so long? If that makes sense. And the next question is, how do you navigate through all of that, man? I mean, 8 campuses, 4 international ones. That's a lot, dude. So tackle the first one there for me, if you don't mind. How do you navigate through all of that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as why I've been at Saddleback so long, it's there's no perfect church, right? So I've not been at Saddleback for 18 years because it's the best church on the planet. It's a great church, but it's not a perfect church. I like it. I'm a fit. It fits me, and I fit it. And I mean, just to be, sounds really spiritual, but the reality is, I haven't felt like God's asked me to move on, and when I feel like God's asking me to move on, then I'll move on. But I kind of hope He doesn't for a while, because I really do like Saddleback. I like the big, I like the crazy, I like the chaotic, I like the frenetic pace. Wow. And so to your point, or your question about how do I juggle all that, it's tough. My role's expanded quite a bit. The beautiful thing is we're not supposed to do ministry alone. I think that's a principle for small church, large church, wherever we are, that we got to share the load. And I've got people around me, and I work with people. I have great people on my team that help navigate all that stuff. The reality is, I can get a little bit busy if I'm not careful, and the pace is pretty fast. This is a whole different topic, but I kind of don't worry too much about margin and balance. I don't think ministry allows a whole lot of margin and balance. I do worry about health and being spiritually healthy and having a healthy marriage and being a healthy friend. And so I kind of think in terms of rhythms and seasons and health more than I do balance and margin and boxes and time management, because that just doesn't seem to work real well in my setting. But
gotcha. Now, how did you get to that point? Gotcha. Like, how did you get to that point to not worry about margins and that kind of stuff, but to be more focused on rhythms and seasons and that kind of, like, how did you get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of it's how we're wired, right? I mean, I would never suggest to somebody who's wired for boxes and good time management, I would never suggest to them, you need to change your way of thinking. I've just never been wired that way. I'm wired a little bit differently, and I have just kind of spent a whole bunch of my youth ministry career feeling guilty that I'm not really perfect with time management, and I don't have everything figured out, and I'm kind of I wake up at weird hours of the night, and I want to do work, and I want to ditch out of work to go surf or hang out with my family, and that's just kind of how I'm wired. But I always felt guilty for that, and so I just sort of embraced the fact that, and not every youth ministry has this kind of freedom, but a whole lot of youth pastors have more freedom than sometimes we recognize.
Wow.
So I just sort of leverage that freedom, the fact that as long as the job is being done and being done well, my senior pastor is really happy with me, and nobody's looking over my shoulder, so I just chose to kind of embrace the way I'm wired and work at different rhythms and paces and take the guilt. I was under all this guilt for not having a date day every single Monday night, and I was under all this guilt of every now and then going in and working in the office on my Sabbath day. And so I just decided to free myself of that and just live a little bit differently.
Wow, makes a lot of sense. Kurt, man, why do you love student ministry? And that's a simple question, but you've been in a long time.
Yeah.
Why do you love it?
Well, I think I love student ministry because I like teenagers. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I really like being around teenagers. I think they're fun. I like the season of life that they're in. I like the whole adolescent development stage. So I just like being around them, which makes it really easy to stick with it for a long time. But I also believe that we're doing the most important work in the church. It's very hard for me to be convinced that what we're doing as youth workers is not the most important ministry in the entire church. And I think, honestly, if I felt like there was a better way to spend my time, I'd do it, because I want to have kingdom impact. I want to have fruit. I want to stand before the Lord someday and feel like I invested my time wisely. And for me, teenagers just is the best place to do it. It's not the easiest.
Right.
It's not the most well paid. It's not the it's not the most often thanked. It's kind of thankless. But I think it's the most important. So I do it because I like teenagers, and I believe it's of vital importance. So I haven't been able to get out of it yet. I've tried, but I can't.
No, makes perfect sense. Now, you've written a brand new book for teenagers, man, Reframing Jesus. How'd you come up with that title, if you don't mind me asking, man? And how do you stay so fresh with the amount of work that you have and the amount of books that you've written with teenagers? Right.
Well, I mean, you stay up to date with teenagers by sticking around teenagers, right? So I still lead a 7th grade boys small group every week. I'm in it. I'm neck deep in it, and I spend a lot of time with students in our ministry, which helps me keep my finger or my thumb on the pulse of what's going on. Reframing Jesus, really, I co-wrote that book with Rick Lawrence and over at Group Publishing.
Okay.
And the reason for that is it's Simply Youth Ministry, and especially with Rick, he's really kind of gone through this Jesus-centered kind of his own, just kind of recentering his own ministry and his life and his youth ministry philosophy around being more Jesus-centric. And reframing Jesus was kind of a natural offshoot. He wrote Jesus-centered youth ministry for youth workers, and so this reframing Jesus was kind of a natural offshoot of some of their Jesus-centric focus right now. And we sat down and said, what do we want to see happen? And we said, well, we just want kids to have a different picture of who Jesus is. And so that drove the title. It's a great, easy devotional for teenagers to pick up. And better than the content is the graphics and the look. I mean, it looks awesome. Gotcha. Content, kind of sketchy. Graphics.
Well, if it's coming from you, I can understand that. We had a question that just came in basically from Logan West, man. And his question was, if I get it back up, Jacob, that would be great if I can. If I can't, it's fine too. They are separating middle school and high school, basically, Kurt. And he would like to know, if the question's correct, man, what type of upfront activities should they do with junior hires and separating the two ministries? Is that a fair question to ask you there, man? Do you get it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I quite is he talking about maybe in the setting, the context of his program, or like to
In the
set
context of the actual program.
Yeah.
I think he means the actual program, if I'm not mistaken, Kurt.
If I'm hearing you right, if I'm hearing the question right, I would just say do twice as much fun and games with junior high as you do with high school. Don't make the mistake of thinking high schoolers don't want fun and games at your entry level, like your big weekly gathering. But I would just say the bigger mistake is treating junior hires in the same way we treat high schoolers.
Wow.
And, I don't know if his youth group was mostly junior high and now they're splitting, or if it was mostly high school, right? But if it was mostly high school, but now they're splitting, he's going to have to work hard to make sure the new junior high program is truly designed for junior high kids. And I would say the same thing, if it was mostly junior high, he's probably going to have to work hard to make sure the new high school program is designed specifically for high school kids, because they were probably kind of erring, when they were all together, they were probably erring on the side of the majority. And so now that they're separate, they have to kind of proactively make a junior high one that's a little bit more fun and games, a little bit shorter teaching time, a little bit more interactive, and then let the high school one be a little bit, more age specific. I'm not even sure if that answered the question he was asking, but
I think it did answer the question. Kurt, it's a trick question here, man. What makes a good middle school program and what makes a good high school program? What are some characteristics that you would say? I know there's a lot to add to this, so I'll just be fair here on this one. What makes a good middle school program and a good high school program?
And this whole thing's supposed to be about 10 more minutes long?
Yes, it is.
Well, believe it or not, I would say the same stuff. It's the same things for both. Or it's the same values, the same principles. They just have to look different for the different ages. So from my perspective, what makes a good junior high program or a good high school program would be a well-defined reason why you exist, a purpose statement, a mission statement, and then a strategy to fulfill that.
Gotcha.
I just think better youth ministry happens when you have a mission and a purpose and a strategy than when you're just completely organic and completely off the hip. I think having some values in place, so if you were to ask me straight up, I think fun is the number one value. I think for high schoolers and junior hires, church needs to be fun. Doesn't have to be stand-up comedy, doesn't have to be wild and crazy, but teenagers need to look forward to coming to church. For me, we define the win as if a first-time visitor came to our youth group, a first-timer they came, and at the end they said, wow, I want to come back and I want to bring a friend with me. That to me is the win. And I think that happens in a fun environment. And again, fun doesn't mean you're playing dodgeball all night. It just, if it's authentic and it's relevant and there's relationships happening and they can express their doubts and their questions, that creates a fun church experience for them. Yeah. It's the opposite of just the same old boring church lectures. It looks different for junior high than it does for high school, but I think all of those together I think they're the same values for both.
No, it makes perfect sense. Kurt, another question here is this, man. Since you and I are both older in student ministry here, so I want you to think back a little bit to when you started, 40 years ago. The question is, what would you tell a new student pastor coming in, man? What are some things you would say, man, here's what I've learned, and here's what you need to actually think about and do? Yeah.
Man, oh man, oh man. I think I would tell somebody brand new that longevity at the same church whenever possible should be a goal. Because the fruit takes a while to ripen, and it just, when you're there for 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 years, start to see the fruit of your early labors that you don't get to see if you leave too early. Trust is built up over time. Relationships with parents are built up over time. You can build a healthy volunteer team over time. And so I would encourage them from day one to if they're brand new and they don't have a position yet, I would say take your time and find the right church. There's no perfect church, but you don't have to say yes to the first church that wants to hire you.
Wow.
You're interviewing churches just like they're interviewing you. So find a church that you think sets you up for longevity, and then, if at all possible, stay there as long as you can. Don't compare your church with the church down the street. Don't compare your salary with the salary down the street. Don't compare the size of the youth room or the youth facility with the church down the street. Because when you do, that's when you start feeling like, oh, the grass is greener. And I would tell them the grass is greener where you water it. So water your own grass as often as you can. That would be number one. And number two would be just prepare yourself for hard work and disappointment and frustration, and that all goes with the gig. If you wanted an easy job, you would go work someplace else. As far as you check in at 9 a.m., you check out at 5 p.m., and as long as you make the number of widgets you're supposed to make, you're all good. And ministry just isn't that. Ministry is kind of life-threatening, and they need to know that. They need to know that on the front end.
No, makes perfect sense. Kurt, a couple questions here, and we're nearing the end of our time. So if folks have questions, they can send them on in. Man, how do you discern the voice of God when you're preparing for your students, when you guys meet, and just in leading your student ministry there?
Well, first of all, I'm Southern Baptist, so that question makes me a little nervous.
I bet it does.
I know the Southern Baptist answer is the voice of God has already been perfectly revealed in Scripture. So
correct.
Now you're asking me to kind of no. I'm all joking aside. I got a two-part answer to that question. One, because I really believe that our model of youth ministry is biblical and does reflect a discerning understanding of Scripture, I don't feel like every time we have a youth ministry decision we have to discern God's voice, because I think we are following a biblical model of youth ministry at Saddleback. So that helps. Day to day, just from a personal standpoint, I'm a little bit of the pray without ceasing kind of guy. Like I'm kind of just talking to God a lot, and hopefully I'm in a habit of trying to hear God's voice and His nudge in the Spirit moving all the time, whether it's youth ministry or with my kids or so I like to just kind of stay in friendship with God throughout the day, as opposed to I'm not really the guy that falls on my knees for an hour because I got to hear God's voice on the next series we're going to teach.
Yeah.
I've just kind of been in relationship with God throughout the week, so when it comes time to think about the next series, I pray about it and I just kind of go for it. Obviously, God speaks through Scripture. He speaks through wise counsel. One habit I've always had in my ministry is I've always had somebody one season of life ahead of me. It's getting tougher as I'm getting older, right? But I'm always trying to find one season of life ahead of me who can kind of coach me up and point things out, and they're not afraid to say that seemed out of line.
Gotcha. One more question that's kind of came into us here, man. Like, how do you gain trust with parents?
Yeah, longevity.
Wow.
I mean, really, trust is earned in longevity, and trust is earned in not doing stupid stuff. So do less stupid things for a longer period of time, and
yes, don't do anything stupid.
Will trust you, because they don't give it away super easily. Some parents they give you a little bit because of your position, right?
Right.
And they give you a little bit because They trust the senior leadership who hired you and all that kind of stuff. But most of it you earn by not doing dumb things that jeopardize their kids, and by sticking around a long time and building a track record. And they will give you trust over time, but there's really not a shortcut to it.
Gotcha.
To the trust of parents.
Let me follow up on that one real quick here, Kurt. If a new junior hire's coming in, new sixth graders coming in, they've been in children's ministry, great ministry, but of course ours is better. How do you help that parent transition their kid in to the ministry?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't wait until promotion weekend, right?
Right.
You start early on. So we've got a strategy. We kind of call it the reach down and push up strategy. So junior high is reaching down into elementary for about 6 months before promotion weekend. We're doing some parent meetings. We have a sixth grade orientation night. We're going into their program, getting to know the kids, and we're also pushing our eighth graders up into high school the same way. So we reach down and we push up. High school reaches down to junior high and they push up to college. Elementary just kind of pushes up. But we've worked really hard to have a great relationship with our children's ministry. So, one of the best things you can do is have a relationship with your children's ministry that they want to speak highly of your youth ministry. Because parents aren't coming to me going, hey, are you trustworthy? They're going to the children's ministry that they've been in relationship with for 7 or 8 years saying, hey, what do you know about that crazy youth ministry?
Right.
Are they going to be good to my kids? And you want your children's people to say, oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, your kids are going to love youth group. We love the youth ministry. But we have a three-legged stool approach to our youth ministry. It's students, volunteers, and parents. And so we work really hard to try to be in relationship and minister to the parents, and we're trying to do a little bit better of job of that even with the elementary parents so that there's a natural relationship by the time they start sending their kids in. But the reality is it's tough to do that until we have them kind of under our roof, and then we go after them.
No, makes perfect sense. Last question, and this is being recorded, Kurt. I just want to make that clear to you, man. Everyone wants to know this question. Man, what's it like working with Rick Warren, man?
Yes. Well, it's tough to write his sermons every week. That part's been.
I bet, man. I bet. This is being recorded, by the way.
He's like most other pastors, right? I mean, there's good days and bad days and highs and lows, and he is extremely supportive of our youth ministry. But like most senior pastors, it's not top of his mind. Thank goodness. I actually say, praise the Lord, it's not top of his mind, right? None of us want our senior pastors thinking about us 24/7,
No.
and he doesn't. But he's extremely supportive of our youth ministry. Super quick story. This is a few years ago. I get a phone call on a Friday night. I'm driving home on a Friday night. So I've got a date night planned with my wife, the whole deal, and my cell phone rings and it's Rick.
Wow.
Which is usually not a good thing when my cell phone.
Right.
Something. I'm preaching all of a sudden this weekend at big church, or something. But he says, "Hey, Kurt, we just got a pool table put up in our garage. I want to have a party tonight. Invite some junior hires over, and I'll buy the pizzas. I'll heat up the pool." Now, good news, bad news, right? I mean, I'm sitting there going, the bad news is it's Friday. I got plans. You want me just to fill your house? How in the world? The good news, how many senior pastors call their youth pastor and say, I want a bunch of teenagers at my house? There's senior pastors with churches of 200 who have never invited they've never invited their youth group over to their house. And here's Rick Warren going, dude, bring some kids over. I want a party. So we called a bunch of small group leaders, and we had a party at Rick's house, and it was awesome. If I didn't love my senior pastor, I couldn't have been here for 18 years. There's just I wouldn't let myself work for somebody for 18 years that I didn't believe in and trust and love. I think he feels the same about me, or else I don't think he'd have kept me around for 18 years.
No, I understand.
It ain't perfect reason.
I can see why he keeps you around for 18 years, by the way, man. And no one paid me to say that, by the way. Yeah. Man, Kurt, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. I know you have a lot of things to do that. You just got back into the country. But thank you for giving us your time this afternoon. Well, that's it for us. And for Jacob and myself, man, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good one.
Take care.